the ground shook, and a few slivers of rock came loose from the ceiling. The blast had come from higher up in the catacombs, most likely from the communications jammer. The warrior bent low, eyes upraised to the tunnel ceiling, making sure the blast hadn't destabilized it. But his attention was soon drawn away by the sound of movement in the tunnels ahead, of boots striking the stone floor of the catacombs. The sound of muffled radio chatter and unmistakably human voices confirmed that the noise had come from the enemy. The warrior's leathery wings twitched nervously as he raised his sonic blaster, finger poised above the trigger, and prepared to open fire. Hello and welcome back to our latest series. Today, we're going to be looking back at another of the bloodiest battles in the history of the Star Wars galaxy, looking for insights into the soldiers who fought and died in them, with the goal of understanding the worst day of these beings' lives, and, in many cases, the last day of these beings' lives. Today, we'll be revisiting the very first battle of the Clone Wars, the first battle of Geonosis, and this time, we'll be looking at the Battle of Geonosis from the perspective of the natives themselves, the Geonosians of the Stalgasian Hive. In 22 BBY, the Clone Wars began, and they began on planet Geonosis. There, the corporate sponsors of the Confederacy of Independent Systems were taking delivery of massive private droid armies built by the Geonosians, which they planned to pool into a unified separatist droid army for use in war against the Republic. The Geonosians had aligned themselves with the Confederacy, dedicating their enormous hive factories to the Confederacy's use and even designing new battle droids for them. Before the Geonosians' new army could be shipped off-world, however, Jedi Knight Obi-Wan Kenobi discovered the plot, and though he was captured by the Geonosians, he was able to relay the news to the Jedi Council. While the Council informed the Senate of the development and debated its next course of action, Kenobi, as well as his would-be rescuers, Anakin Skywalker and Senator Padme Amidala, were sentenced to death for the crime of espionage and brought to the Petranaki Arena. Their execution was interrupted, however, by Mace Windu and a team of 212 Jedi who had infiltrated Geonosis to rescue Kenobi, Skywalker, and Amidala. The Geonosians responded by dispatching their droid armies into the arena, sparking a huge battle in which all but 30 Jedi were killed. But the Jedi survivors were rescued by Grandmaster Yoda, who showed up with unexpected reinforcements. The new Grand Army of the Republic. A clone army grown by the Kaminoans and adopted by the Senate. The GAR rescued the survivors and rapidly deployed tanks and troops on the desert plains of Geonosis, while the leaders of the Separatist Council hastily sent out detachments of their droid armies. What began as an arena skirmish blossomed into a full-scale field battle. Separatist forces rallied around the core ships and other transports docked in the desert flats around the arena, while Republic forces deployed and attempted to destroy or capture the transports before they could escape with their cargo of battle droids. The Separatists had the advantage of numbers, but the Republic had other advantages that ultimately proved more significant. Since Republic warships had shelled the Geonosian starfighter nests from orbit before the battle, the Republic had decisive air superiority. And all throughout the battle, Republic gunships made passes over the battlefield, shooting down transports and firing on droid positions from above, allowing the ground troops and artillery to advance and overrun Separatist positions across the desert. The Geonosians themselves largely fled the battlefield, leaving the fighting to the droids. On the orders of Poggle the Lesser, the warriors of the Stalgasian Hive retreated to Geonosis' vast network of catacombs, which they were to hold against any Republic incursions. When it became clear that the battle was not in their favor, the Separatist Council made the unanimous decision to flee Geonosis. As they did so, teams of Republic commandos and Jedi advanced into the Geonosian catacombs. Some were charged with forcing their way into the Separatist command center, while others were sent to lay claim to the catacombs and rout the Geonosian warriors there. There, they met Geonosian warriors seeking refuge from the fighting, and as battle raged on the planet's surface, it was mirrored by bloody skirmishes deep below. Most Republic units that entered the catacombs ultimately never returned, but those that did were able to do significant damage. Squads of clone commandos used the catacombs to ambush and assassinate high-ranking enemy personnel, disable grounded separatist transports, and attack other key targets. Some commandos even attacked the upper levels of the Geonosian hives themselves, bringing the battle to the Geonosians' homes, where the planet's natives fiercely resisted. The Stalgasian warriors fled deeper into the catacombs, feeling their way through knots of pitch-black tunnels that wound deep into Geonosis. Their feet made no sound against the hard rock of the catacombs, and all that could be heard was the occasional quiver of leathery wings and the scraping of the warriors' weapons against their bony exoskeletons. It was just after they passed yet another major junction that the warriors came to a halt. There was a new smell in the tunnels, one that reeked of plastoid and sweaty humans. The Geonosians remained silent, but the pheromones of their leader issued orders to the warriors. One was to remain behind as a point guard, while the rest were to head deeper to a more secure position. The Geonosians obeyed. As the rest of the team descended into the tunnels, the scent of their pheromones slowly fading, the point guard remained behind, sonic blaster in hand, waiting for the enemy. He had only just taken position when the catacombs shook, rocked by an explosion from above. The warrior crouched, eyeing the ceiling and watching for the telltale motion of an imminent collapse, but his attention was soon drawn by radio chatter and human voices approaching through the tunnel ahead. The warrior raised his sonic blaster, finger hovering over the trigger, and prepared to fire. The sound grew louder. Light entered that lightless place, cast from the ambient glow of armor attachments. The light was faint, but it pierced the darkness nonetheless, and the warrior's eyes fixed on it, watching it steadily grow, quietly calculating when the first hostile would round the corner. The warrior's calculations were right on the money. As soon as the first human came into view, bulky white armor dotted with points of blue light, the Geonosian opened fire. With a shrill sound, a ball of green energy flew down the tunnel and struck the advancing hostile square in the chest. The energy bubble burst, unleashing a blast of hardened sound directly into the clone, hurling him backwards. The second clone to come around the corner met the same fate, and both troopers crumpled against the tunnel wall, their bodies twisting into unnatural positions as their insides melted from the sonic blast. Curses in some alien tongue echoed down the tunnel, and the next two clones charged around the corner, firing on the warrior before he could get another shot off. The Geonosian hastily ducked into an alcove in the tunnel, narrowly evading the brilliant blue bolts whizzing down past him, and he pressed himself flat into the wall, making himself as quiet as possible. Another curse sounded from further up the tunnel, followed by the echoing sound of a single pair of boots slowly creeping down the catacomb. The Geonosian waited patiently, perfectly silent and still, as the commando steadily approached, blaster rifle raised. As he did, he scanned the walls, the glow from his blue visor sweeping back and forth across the corridor. Slowly and silently, the warrior crept further up the alcove, scaling the wall until he was nearly flat against the ceiling. He was just barely high enough when the commando came by that the trooper's visor glow passed just under him, and the clone continued onwards. Then, the warrior dropped from the ceiling, tackling the commando to the ground and kicking his blaster out of his hands. The human let out a yelp and grabbed for the Geonosian's sonic blaster, attempting to wrestle it away, or at least keep it pointed toward the wall. The clone pushed upwards, attempting to hurl the warrior off him, but the Geonosian was stronger than he expected, and the warrior held his ground, bringing his blaster down against the clone's head. The commando's helmet was knocked off, and the Geonosian looked down into a set of human eyes, set into a flat, tuskless face, alien and angry. Disgust gave the Geonosian a burst of added strength, allowing him to wrench his sonic blaster free of the clone's grasp and fire. The blast was so close that the warrior was nearly deafened by it, but most of the hard stuff went into the body of the commando. He collapsed immediately, upper body bending hard to one side as his spine disintegrated, absorbed into the thick soup that had once been the human's heart and lungs. Blood trickled from orifices of the human's face and pooled on the catacomb floor as the clone's eyes rolled backwards into his skull. The Geonosian stood up to get his bearings, but even as he did, he felt something sharp and rapidly vibrating plunge into his back, cutting through exoskeleton and inner tissue alike. The blade rose and fell several times, and the warrior gasped hoarsely as the air was sucked out of his lungs from behind. He collapsed, sonic blaster clattering to the floor. The Geonosian watched while the fourth human bent over the body of the third, angrily spouting a torrent of words in his alien tongue, while the warrior felt his life slip away. The Geonosians and their separatist allies fought hard, but in the end, resistance was futile. Within hours of the outbreak of the battle, the GAR mopped up the last pockets of droid resistance, and Geonosis was theirs. The Republic occupied Geonosis, taking control of the planet's surface. But its victory was incomplete. Though many droid transports had been destroyed, many others had been able to escape, as had Count Dooku and the entirety of the Separatist Council. The Republic was able to take control of the planet's surface, but it had been driven out of the Geonosian Catacombs, where Separatist-aligned Geonosians regrouped and plotted their next move, eventually leading to the Separatist reconquest of the planet and the Second Battle of Geonosis. The Republic had failed to crush the CIS before they became a threat, to end the war before it had truly begun. After the battle, however, the Republic had no choice but to settle in for the long fight, and it could take no comfort in its victory, as the Clone Wars had only just begun. The first Battle of Geonosis was swift and bloody, and the Republic's victory came at a very high cost. 179 Jedi, including a member of the Jedi High Council, perished, mostly in the arena battle. Republic casualties were substantial, thousands of clones died or were wounded, while nearly half of all clone commandos were wiped out. With that said, the Republic dealt as good as it got. Several Separatist leaders were killed, as were 3 of Dooku's Dark Acolytes. Many Separatist droid transports were destroyed before they could take to the skies with their cargoes of battle droids. All droid forces deployed on the surface were either destroyed, disabled, or forced to retreat, while the Geonosians suffered significant casualties. But what mattered most was what the Republic failed to destroy in the battle: Dooku, the Separatist Council, and the CIS droid army. That does it for this video though. What do you think of this series so far? Let us know any potential recommendations in the comments section below, and as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.